So we've got cost concepts defined. We understand what perfect competition is. We're ready to start looking at some graphs. I just want to remind you that we defined three important per unit cost concepts. We talked about marginal cost, average total cost, and average variable cost. Marginal cost should be increasing, and average total cost intersects marginal cost at its minimum. That is also true for average variable cost. Average variable cost also intersects marginal cost at its minimum. Of course, average variable cost is always going to be below average total cost because average total cost includes both fixed costs and variable costs. So your graph problems are going to look like this. We've defined these three cost concepts to help us understand how firms answer three basic questions about their operation. When they should open versus close in the short run, how much they should produce, and how much profit they're going to earn. Let's start with the first question. How do we know whether or not a firm should stay open or close in the short run? Well, our short run shutdown condition is that as long as the price is greater than or equal to average variable cost, as long as their revenue per unit is larger than their operating cost per unit, then they're going to continue to operate. So this average variable cost curve is going to tell us something about the firm's operation. P1, where average variable cost intersects your marginal cost curve, that is going to be the lowest price at which the firm would operate. And below that price, you'd be below your average variable cost curve and you would produce a quantity of zero. In other words, you would close in the short run. The next question is, if you're open, how much are you producing? And the answer to that question, of course, is to produce as long as your revenue is greater than your marginal cost. Whatever price we observe in the market, what we're going to do is we're going to come over to our marginal cost curve, and that is going to give us the quantity that is produced in that market. And then finally, how much profit are we going to earn? So the curve that tells us about profit is the one we haven't talked about yet. That's the average total cost curve. This price here, P2, is another important point on our graph because when your price is equal to average total cost, that means that profit is going to be zero. Why? Because price is your revenue per unit, average total cost is your cost per unit. So when your price is equal to your average total cost, your revenue per unit is equal to your cost per unit, and you're earning zero profit. So this point is really important here. This is the point where profit is equal to zero. And any price below P2, we would have negative profits. And any price greater than average total cost, your profit is going to be positive. Any price above P2, you're going to have positive profits. I just want to point out one particular region on the graph here that can be confusing. This region here between P1 and P2, in that region, the firm is earning negative profits but continues to operate. You may continue to operate in the short run even though you're losing money because your price is greater than average variable cost in this region. You're earning enough money that you are not only paying your variable costs, but you're able to pay down some of your rent or your fixed costs. So even though you're making a loss, your losses are going to be smaller than if you just shut down and took the fixed cost as a loss. The last thing I want to point out is that we can now label on our graph the individual firm's supply curve is equal to the marginal cost curve. Supply is the relationship between the price and the quantity supplied. That's given by our marginal cost curve, but only above our average variable cost curve. This is where supply comes from. And remember, from the beginning of the class, I've been telling you that you should think about supply as the cost of production. We've just defined that a little bit more carefully. Supply is equal to the marginal cost of production, as long as the firm is earning enough profits to operate in the short run.